In this video, we're going to review some websites that you guys have sent me. So let's start off by taking a shit on our first website. This is Marcus Allen's website portfolio. Now, a portfolio like this could have one of two objectives. Either it could be for getting clients or it could be for getting hired. In Marcus's case, it looks like he's trying to get clients by his wording, but based on the size of his portfolio, it does seem like that he could be potentially trying to get hired. So it's important to keep that in mind because the content on your website is going to be different based on those goals. And if you have a portfolio yourself, you should try to pick one of two of those things. It creates for a more effective website and a better user experience. The first thing I want to critique is this second section on the homepage. It's a two-column layout here, with the first one being one of his projects and the other column on the right being a link to all of his projects. So this doesn't really add up for user experience. What would be most intuitive for the user is to have two projects with a button at the bottom that then links you to all the projects, rather than just showing one and then in the exact same form having a link to go show all the other ones. You can see what I mean here with the changes I made with Inspect Element. You could also look at this layout critiqued in another way, which is that there shouldn't be effectively a view all button coming right after you just listing one thing. It should at least be two. Ideally 3, because that's a very common number in web design. The next thing is this call out he has for his about page. It isn't abundantly clear right from the beginning that it is a call out to the about page. So I would just update this by putting the word about in front of Marcus and changing the text on the button to something a little more descriptive and helpful for user experience. So about Marcus. And you can see here, just with those two changes, it's a lot more intuitive and it's very clear that this is about the about section. The last thing I'll touch on the home page is this contact section. So this does appear on all the other pages, but my problem with it is that these two columns are actually connected, but because they're so visually distinct, they look disconnected in some sort of way. So I would fix this by bringing the two columns closer together so they're actually connected. This way, this entire section is seen as one thing. And then just make the columns equal height because it looks better. Oops, I lied, one more thing. The phone number in the footer. If you have a web portfolio and you're trying to target getting hired rather than getting clients, then I would not have your phone number on your website at all. You're going to open yourself up to a surprisingly unwanted amount of spam phone calls. And if you're trying to get hired, a potential employer isn't going to do anything with that phone number, so you might as well just remove it. Moving on to the projects page. He has a quick little subtitle here that explains what the page is about. I would turn this subtitle into more of a paragraph. You can see I did this here to my portfolio page on my website. It just adds a little more value to the user and makes the page a little better. And then this contact section is a little too close to the portfolio. It should have the same spacing on the bottom as it does for the top. That way the portfolio section is a little more distinct from the contact section. And now onto his about page. First thing I would critique is the content. I think you should easily triple it, if not quadruple it. It adds way more value to the user. This is especially important if you're trying to get hired by an employer with your web portfolio. But if you're trying to get clients, you can get away with a little less. But with either scenario, you should have a solid amount of about page content. This is something I suffer from as well. I do hate talking about myself, but there are a lot of topics you can cover, like what kind of designs you like, why you think your work is different, your personal hobbies, your goals, or even how you go about making your work, like your thought process. Maybe there's people that inspire you, your education background, or if you have any other achievements or courses you've completed. Moving on, another quick little change is the line height on the paragraph text. I think it should be a little more, like this. And then here for your list of different subjects in types of design, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity here for something a lot more visually impactful. There's lots of different ways you can go about it, but I would just try to use your design skills to come up with something that's a little more visually impactful. The next thing I want to look at is his individual portfolio pages. The first thing I'll critique is this button that just says info. This could be changed to a different label and be a lot more informative for the user. Like in this case, view the website. But I do want to wrap up Marcus's website on a compliment. On each of his portfolio piece pages, he talks about the projects themselves, the thought process he had when he made it, and shows some great photos of the actual project in between. I recommend everyone with a web portfolio do this. Overall, I really like the portfolio, and I think with those little tiny changes, you can make it that much more better. I think the biggest thing that I recommend with this portfolio is not to do the changes I just said, but rather to add more portfolio pieces. Having a bigger portfolio is going to be the single best thing you can do to your website to make it more effective. The next website we'll talk about is onefocusPhotos.com. And it's no surprise what they do based off the immediate hero section on the homepage. But enough flattery, let's go find something wrong with the site. Now this motherfucker did contact me, and I did give him some feedback before, and he actually made the changes, which is awesome to see. So hopefully we can find some more and make his website even better. The first thing is I recommend a 2-column layout for this capturing real moments section. It saves some scrolling, shows all the information in one screen, and I think it looks a little better. For this You Dream Of section, this sounds like a list, is formatted like a list, but doesn't look like a list. So there should be some sort of dot or dash icon showing it's a list. Alright, let's have some fun with this next section, featured galleries. What do you see wrong with this? Other than the fact he pushed these buttons to the bottom just so they all line up visually. Fucking justify text. Get rid of it, left align it, please. Please, God, left align it. I hadn't even noticed it until these paragraphs. And then center the featured galleries heading and center the wedding reviews heading. There's no mystical reason for this, it just looks better. Moving down, I would try to use columns in this contact form layout. You could save so much vertical space and scrolling if you're on a phone if you just use some columns. And then I would make a lot more fields required than just the email. Under the contact form, turn this button into a regular text link because you don't want this button to compete with your contact form button just above it. And then definitely fix up this section. Left align the FAQ title and make the button wider. And then in the interest of time, the final critique I'll touch on is the footer. This footer should look more like a footer. The first thing is that it probably should have like a background color to make it visually distinct. And you can probably get away with adding another column or two to include some more links. And now for the last site we'll cover in this video, which is theiPhoneFan.com. Now, the owner of this site is quite young, so I'll approach my critiques with that in mind. The first thing is I would remove all emojis. Emojis just make a website look unprofessional. They're sort of everywhere in the site. There's some in the headings, there's some obviously in the navigation, and all the sub-navigation items as well. And overall, it does come off very overwhelming. After that, I can see you have this all pages accordion on your homepage hero section. Now, if your website navigation does a good enough job, you shouldn't have to have this. So I would try to find a way to incorporate this in your navigation that feels very natural and intuitive for the user. Or maybe move some of these links into the footer. After that, there are a couple little things, like all the text should be left aligned. It makes it easier to read. And now, eventually getting down to the bottom, there should be a footer, which again will give you a great spot for you to add in those links. Then the navigation sub-menus should all be left aligned. It makes it a lot easier to read. Another little thing is these icons aren't really clear on what they do. This up arrow icon takes you back to the homepage, so there should be a label next to it that says something like homepage, and then that way it's a lot more clear to the user. Same goes for all the other icons as well. And that's it, I'll wrap up this critique. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to critique on your website yourself, you can actually purchase one for 75 USD, the price is right now. But to fuel more videos, I will do some for free. So if you just send me an email to the email I have linked in the description, then there might be a chance you could get a critique for free. Next video might be another everything about, so stay tuned, subscribe, and don't make a shit website.